Do you want to maximize every second of your cruise without wearing yourself out? Then don't make these itinerary mistakes. Planning the perfect cruise isn't just about picking a ship and booking a cabin. The itinerary can make or break the entire trip. From overlooked port times to back-to-back excursions that leave no room to breathe, small mistakes can lead to big headaches. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the most common cruise itinerary mistakes and, more importantly, how to avoid them so you can relax and enjoy every moment at sea. Finally, there's one itinerary mistake so many cruisers make that it could cut your vacation short literally. So you want to hear this before you set sail. Let's get started. Number one, most important, arguably most important, ignoring the port arrival and departure times. Some ports have short stays, leaving you less time than you expect. Ship time versus local time can cause confusion, leading to missed departures. Get yourself a cheap Timex, a cheap $10 watch. Take your smartwatch, leave it at home, put it in the safe, in their room, whatever. Get the cheap Timex, manually set it to the ship's time. Make sure it stays on, it will stay on ship's time. That way, you always know what the right time is. You always know when you have to be back by. Give yourself 90 minutes. Make sure you're back 90 minutes before that ship leaves. That way, broken down buses, well, sometimes that's out of your control, but traffic jams, congestion at the port, whatever, you still got plenty of time to get back on board. Port arrival time doesn't always mean, let me back up. There's something else I want to say about that ship is going to leave. Even if you're on a ship sponsored excursion, if that ship has to leave, it's going to leave with or without you. Okay. Yes, if you book your excursion through the cruise line, they're going to do everything they possibly can to get you back before the ship leaves, and they're going to hold that ship if they possibly can. But some of these ports, the ship can only get in and out of that port at high tide. And I'm not going to get into all of that, but basically there's got to be enough water in the port to float the ship. And low tide, So if they have to leave, they're going to leave, even if there's 4 busloads of people who got stuck with a series of mishaps. That's why we're going to talk about that here in a minute. So port arrival time. If the daily planner or the app says that you're going to arrive in port at 7:30 a.m. That does not necessarily mean you're going to be able to get off the ship at 7:31 a.m. That means that they're going to be in port, arguably tied up to the dock at 7:30. It takes a little bit of time for them to get all the lines over, to get the doors open, to get the gangway in place, and to get it so that it's safe for people to get off the ship. Okay? When you book a ship-sponsored excursion, that all gets taken into account. Okay, you don't have to worry about it with a ship excursion. If you're going to do an independent excursion, give yourself an hour. Don't book 7:30 arrival time. Don't book an excursion at 7:30 or 8 o'clock. Book it at 8:30, even 9 o'clock. Depending upon what you're doing and how far yada yada yada. But give yourself that hour. That way you have enough time to get off the ship. Last thing you want to do is pay for this excursion, have them sitting there at the dock waiting for you, and you can't get off the ship, and they say, we got to go because we got to pick up people from other ships or other places, and we can't wait for you any longer, and you're out of luck. Overbooking excursions and activities. I know a lot of people who want to soak up every possible second of every port of call and every second on the cruise ship, and I get that. But if you're in port for 8 hours, do not, please, for the love of everything holy, do not book 2 4-hour excursions. Yes, you might get lucky and you might get back in time. But if you don't, now you're stuck in a foreign country. Cruise line's not going to be most likely a whole lot of help. You're going to have to figure out how to see if you can hop on a flight to the next island before the ship gets there, if you have your passport, if you're allowed to, or you're going to have to figure out how to get back to the U.S. It's not worth it. It's just not worth being a pure runner and missing the ship. Okay? Not to mention, if you're going to the Caribbean, it's warm in the Caribbean. The sun's out a lot. You sweat a lot. You're going to get tired. You're going to get exhausted. You're going to get dehydrated. Last thing you need to do is run. Book one excursion that you really want to do and enjoy it. And if you get back to the ship at 2 p.m, the ship doesn't leave till 6, cool. Walk around the port. Walk around the closest town. Do a little bit of shopping. Find a bar and sit down and have a drink. Get a bite to eat, local cuisine. Relax. Take your time. Enjoy yourself in that port. Another reason not to book back to back. What if it decides to rain? We were on the Wonder of the Seas this past February, and it rained in St. Martin and in St. Thomas. Now, luckily, we had booked excursions that allowed for that. The one was a double-decker bus and it was covered. The other one, we were in was a converted Ford F-150 with a cover on it. So we didn't get wet. Now, it slowed things down. Both excursions lasted 30 to 45 minutes longer because of traffic, because of the rain. I think I beat that one to death. Tender ports. Another thing people don't think about is if you're coming into a port where you have to get on a tender, have to get on another boat to get from your ship to the land, that takes time. Okay, most of these tender boats, tender ships, whatever you want to call them, they're not huge. They maybe 200-300 people, maybe 400 for some of the really big ones, and you've got 2,000 to 6,000 people on your ship who are all trying to get off at the same exact time. Okay, a lot of times the cruise lines will give you a tender ticket, and they'll tell you, you're on tender number 15 or 18 or 43, and that's when they call that tender number is when you're going to get to go ashore. So if you book an independent excursion and it's a tender port, you got to take that into account. If your ship arrives at 8 a.m., do not book yourself an excursion at 8:30 or even 9 o'clock. Book it for 10, 10:30, even 11 if it's possible. Give yourself time to get off that ship. And the same thing on the reverse. When you get back, don't come rolling into the dock where you get on the tender and it's 20 minutes before the ship leaves, because you might have missed that last tender. If it's a tender port, most of the cruise lines, they'll let you know either in the daily planner, on the app, or with big signs as you're about to get off the ship telling you what time that last tender leaves. Do yourself a favor. Don't try and get on that last tender. Don't aim for that, because 500 other people are thinking the same thing. And if it's a tender ship that can't handle 500 people, guess what? You might be out of luck. Next important thing when it comes to your itinerary, don't choose the wrong ship. Okay? The larger ships in the fleet, in the various fleets, are great. They're beautiful. There's 8 billion things to do, and I love them. But this is not specific to, but it's important on a Mediterranean cruise. The larger the ship, the further that ship has to dock from the city center. Okay, because if you think about Europe, these European countries are thousands of years old, and there's not necessarily any room in the port for a new dock, a new terminal. So they're sticking the terminal out in the country, Rome comes to mind. When you go on a cruise and you're going to Rome, on that cruise, you're actually landing in Civitavecchia. Your dock's in Civitavecchia, which is about 90 minutes from Rome. You're in Rome for 8 hours. 90-minute bus ride to, 90-minute back. All of a sudden, you're down to 4 hours, 4.5 hours. So depending upon what your goal is, will depend upon what type of cruise you take. I have a lot of people that I work with that love river cruises. Why? Because those river cruises dock right in the middle of that ancient city. Because if you think about history, most cities grew up or came about because they were on a river. Okay? Well, if you want to be right in the heart of things, get on the river. Don't get on the ocean, get on the river. River cruises are amazing for the right people, for the right reason. If you want to spend 10 to 12 to 14 hours a day in a different port every single day, river cruise. If you want to party at the pool and in the nightclub and in the casino and at the shows and see a couple of cool spots along the way, ocean cruise. There are hardly any sea days on river cruises because you're so close to everything. There's no need. Sea days came about arguably because it takes time to get from Miami to St. Thomas. But getting from, if you're on the Rhine River, getting from one little town to the next little town is like 12 kilometers. 15 miles, you could walk that overnight if you had to. Well, maybe not, but you know what I mean. The river cruises don't have as many amenities. They don't have as many activities because you're not on the ship all that much. You've got a dining room, maybe two. You've got a couple of bars, maybe a guy with a guitar, something like that. Not big world-class productions, no ice skating rink, none of that stuff, okay? Very different type of cruising, okay? Know what you're looking for before you book. Another big no-no. I don't want to say no-no, because you can do it if you want, but another thing that will ruin your cruise, booking a flight too close to either embarkation or debarkation. Every time I talk with somebody, whether it be one of my travel agency customers, a family member, a friend, or just somebody, commenting on one of my videos here on YouTube, always recommend flying. If you're flying to your cruise, fly the day before. Don't screw yourself by flying in the morning of, because all it takes is one delay, one canceled flight, one idiot who decides they want to fight with TSA, and you're going to miss that cruise. Particularly if you're flying long distance and or over a body of water. If you're going to take a Mediterranean cruise and you got to fly into, Venice, Italy to, get over to Trieste, Italy for a cruise, don't try and fly. I mean, yes, there are flights that leave the night before and they'll get you in the morning up, 7, 8, 9 in the morning. The ship doesn't leave till 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Yep, you're absolutely right. Venice Airport is a smaller airport. How many flights do you think there are from, all right, I'm going to use my area, from Newark Airport or Philadelphia Airport that will get you to Venice Airport that next morning, if the flight that you're already booked on gets canceled or delayed and you get stuck in Heathrow or, I don't know, even Toronto, and you miss your connection? Don't do that to yourself. Yes, I know it costs money and extra money for a hotel. Get your butt to the port the day before. Period. End of story. If you listen to anything I say, listen to that. Same thing on debarkation. Don't book yourself a 10 a.m. flight the morning your ship gets back into port. Okay, yeah, theoretically, you can get from the port of Miami to Miami Airport in time for a 10 a.m. flight. But don't do that to yourself. If you're getting off the ship in the U.S. and you're flying somewhere else within the U.S., I would not personally recommend booking a flight before noontime. All it takes is a 2-hour delay getting into port because of wind or rain or whatever. You're going to miss that 10 a.m. flight. But you still got a shot at making the 12 o'clock flight. If you're flying internationally, if you're flying from Trieste or Southampton or Barcelona, do yourself a favor and get a mid to late afternoon flight. Yes, potentially that could leave you sitting at the airport for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours before your flight. Just do it. It's going to make your entire cruise, your entire trip much smoother if you do that. Don't put yourself through that stress with flying in the morning of and flying out the morning you get back. Okay. Weather and seasonal factors. When you're planning a cruise, but you're planning a trip, do some research on the weather in that area at that time of year. Okay. Not everybody. A lot of people want to do Alaskan cruises. You're not doing one in January. Okay. Well, first of all, cruise lines aren't putting their ships at risk in January. Do some research. I had it like seasonal research when you first start planning it. Arguably you want to avoid hurricane season in the Caribbean. So you don't want to go August to November. I do. That doesn't bother me because the ships can avoid for the most part. But some people, they don't want to take that chance. So they avoid that season. You don't go to Alaska after September or before late March, early April. Things like that. Find out what seasons are best for your destination and find out what the shoulder season is. The shoulder season, if you think about, head and shoulders, okay? The head, that's the heart of the season. So Mediterranean cruises, heart of the season is July, August-ish, okay? Maybe a little bit into June, but the shoulder season, that's like the couple of weeks or a month before and the couple of weeks or a month afterwards. Let's go back to Alaska. Main tourist season in Alaska is July, late June to maybe mid-August. Okay. Shoulder seasons are April, May, September, the end of August into September. Main part of the season is going to be the most expensive, the most populated, the most people, okay? Arguably also the most, warm weather, the most not necessarily animal say, but the most things to do, okay? The shoulder seasons, they're going to be a little bit colder. They're going to be maybe a little bit wetter. They're going to have less people on them, potential to see more wildlife because there's not as many people running around scaring the animals. Potentially not as many excursions as well because not all of the excursion companies are running during the shoulder season. But use those shoulder seasons to your advantage when you can. Visa requirements, entry requirements. Some countries, and this is constantly changing, some countries require visas even for cruise passengers. Visa on arrival or, whatever. Mexico, or is it Cancun only? Now, right now, if you're taking a trip to Cancun, not necessarily a cruise, but if you're flying down there to hit up one of the all-inclusive resorts, there's now, I don't know if it's an entry fee or an exit fee that you got to pay. Okay. Talk to your travel agent, talk to the cruise line, find out what those visa requirements are, the entry requirements. travel restrictions, are things restricted? Are there certain areas you can't go to? Are there certain, countries you're not allowed to fly to? And still, even though, we're quote unquote post-pandemic, some countries are still requiring vaccines, or at the very least, a vaccine card, that kind of thing. Okay. Make sure you know all of those things before you book, because you don't want to find out the day you're leaving that, you needed 3 weeks to get this piece of paper or that piece of paper, and now you can't go. Passports. If you're a U.S. citizen, I don't care if it's closed loop. Bring your passport. Yes, technically closed loop, starting in U.S., ending in the U.S., you can get away with birth certificate and picture ID. Get yourself a passport. Costs not even $200 and takes a couple of weeks. Get a passport. Keep that passport with you. God forbid you didn't plan properly and you're now a pier runner. Without your passport, first thing you got to do is find a way to get to the U.S. Embassy to get them to issue you an emergency passport. Bring your passport. Just do it. Bite that bullet and get it done. Arguably one of my favorite parts of the cruise, sea days. Depending upon who you are and how you feel and what you think of sea days, I know people that will not go on a cruise if there's more than 2 sea days in a row. And if there's more than 3 in an entire cruise, they're not going on it because they don't like sea days. Cool. Nothing wrong with that. I love sea days. Plan them. Don't just, it's a sea day. We'll figure out what to do. Yeah, no. The night before the day, beforehand, find out what's going on and plan your day. You don't have to plan, 30-second increments, okay? But, all right, we're going to get up, we're going to go get some breakfast, we're going to hit the pool for a couple hours, and then we want to see the belly flop contest, and we want to do 80s trivia and 60s trivia, and we want to go see the aqua show, and we're going to go to the casino, and we're going to do plan it out. If you want to do spa treatments, do spa treatments, specialty dining, plan that out ahead of time because that stuff books up quickly. Okay. Explore the ship. Walk the ship top to bottom, front to back. Do it 3 times. There is so much to see on every single one of these cruise ships. I can't even tell you how many times I'm talking with somebody who just got back from a cruise and it happened to be a ship that I was on. I asked them, oh, did you see this? Did you go here? Did you see the Mad Hatter restaurant? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, no, we missed that. Where was that? I never heard of that. Time zone changes. We talked a little bit about this when we were talking about the Timex watch and ship time. The reason you get the Timex watch is because ship time and local time aren't always going to be the same. Arguably, a lot of times they're not going to be the same. The only time you care about is ship time. Okay. But planning for those time zone changes, especially if you're flying somewhere, that there's a time zone change, being aware of that, knowing that you're going to arrive in time, whether it be your flight arrives in time to get on that ship, which won't ever be an issue if you fly in the day before, or flying out. There's not always clear announcements when you change time zones on a ship. Another reason that I recommend that you use a regular watch, not a smartwatch, because your phone, depending upon how you have it set, your phone's going to automatically update the time based on the time zone. And if your smartwatch is connected to your phone, that's going to change back and forth. You don't want to deal with that. That's why you get a non-smartwatch. Arguably the biggest mistake of all, not allowing some buffer time. When you plan things, when you plan excursions, when you plan arriving and departing, embarkation, debarkation, plan some buffer time. Add some time in, an extra half an hour, an extra hour. Stuff's going to happen. Weather's going to happen, mechanical issues, itinerary changes, flights are going to get canceled. Give yourself that buffer time. You don't want to miss flights. You don't want to miss excursions or connections or anything like that. If you miss a show on the ship because, you got stuck late at the other one, okay, who cares? You don't want to miss a ship because you didn't have a little bit of buffer time. Whew, that was a lot. Now that you know how to pick the best cruise itinerary, you might be wondering, should you cruise or should you visit Disney? If you don't compare the two, you could end up spending thousands on the wrong type of vacation. I'm going to break it down in this video for you.